Megan, could you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I gotta fix something. We'll do another sound check in just a minute.
Okay, sounds good. If y'all can hear me still, uh, just want to let you know that my fellowship was unexpectedly extended.
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Sure, just wanted to let folks know before the meeting starts
Actually,
that
hold on one second.
Yeah, these, like, it's, the golden otherwise.
Alan, Megan, could you try that one more time, please?
Sure, can you hear me okay?
Nope, one more time. Hang on.
Hey, can you hear us? No,
I can hear you now.
not yet.
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Oh,
Yes.
she can hear me. Yay. Oh,
Just sounds like you can't hear me.
I can now.
Oh, you can.
That's
We're good.
We are having technical difficulties and we'll be starting in a couple minutes.
Yep. Thank you. I know, right?
Okay, so. Yeah.
Are we ready? Okay, more or less. Hope it's more and more and less less. Okay, I'll call the February 2026 meeting of the Manitou Springs Planning Commission to order. The first item of business is a roll call. Commissioner Rosenthal,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Commissioner DeLay,
Present.
Commissioner Day,
Present.
Commissioner Graybill.
Present.
And I'm Chair Delwich, and Commissioner Keith is not, won't be here tonight. He's excused. So next item of business would be the approval of the minutes of the January meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the January 14th meeting minutes.
Any,
I'll second.
okay, any questions or corrections? Okay, all those in favor of, raise your hand. Okay. I'll move on. Next, we'll go to public comment on non-agenda items, and this is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to comment on something that's not on our agenda tonight. And typically we'll just listen and take notes if we need to, but we won't respond. It's more just to express any knowledge or stuff you want us to know about. So seeing no takers, no one online, we'll move on to the business part of our meeting. And for the quasi judicial items, we'll be following a process where I'll bring an item up for discussion. Staff will describe what the item is, what the request was, and what their findings and analysis might be, any recommendations they have. Following that, we'll deliberate. We'll discuss, we'll allow the applicant to state their case. And at the end of that, we'll open the hearing to the public, and anybody in the audience is welcome to express their opinion or their concerns, whatever. And following that, we'll close the public comment part of the hearing, and we will deliberate, and we'll make our decision based on guidance from our municipal code and the comprehensive plan. We don't make laws. We just interpret what's in the municipal code and the comprehensive plans and make our decisions based on that. So we're kind of like judges. We judge based on the information provided, but we can't legislate. So with that, next would be, does anybody have any conflicts or ex parte conflicts to this? Okay, so I see none. So we'll move on. The first item of business is short-term rental 2601 at 2219 Crystal Hills Boulevard. Is the applicant here? Okay, great. Thank you. So.
Thank you, Chelsea Royston, for the record. Let me get my screen shared here. STR 2601 is an application for a short-term rental at 219 Crystal Hills Boulevard. Lisa Yens, the owner, is present. The property is zone low density residential and is in the Crystal Hills neighborhood, I believe. The house has 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, 1 2-car garage, and an additional 1-car garage. The property is approximately 15,250 square feet, which exceeds the minimum of 8,700 square feet required by the low density residential zone district. So the request is to rent either and the whole home or just the bottom level, depending on whether or not the owners will be traveling. They reside full-time in Manitou Springs, but they do travel for approximately 2 months of the year. So while they're home, they would be renting out the bottom level, which is 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. And while they're traveling, they would be renting out the whole home, which is 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. They have approximately 7 off-street parking spaces, where 3 are required by code. And they have submitted all of the requirements of the short-term rental permit as required by code. They are eligible both in terms of the existing zoning as well as the short-term eligibility web map. This shows that they are not within 500 feet of any existing short-term rental permit or conditional use permit allowing a short-term rental. The majority of the neighborhood is zone low density residential. It does, the property backs up to general residential and hillside low density residential. However, again, this property does exceed the minimum lot size for the low density residential zone district. Here we have the site plan showing the main level of the home with 1 bedroom and 1.5 bathrooms. And then the lower level with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Not shown are the entire driveways, which are substantial. They are noted on the site plans as showing whether it is a 2 parking space driveway or a 3 parking space driveway. The approval criteria for short-term rentals is first, that the short-term rental does not adversely impact the surrounding uses. And 2, that the short-term rental does not encroach upon traditional neighborhood characteristics. This concludes my presentation, and I have some proposed motion language, but I would accept any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Okay, I'm curious, we used to have a requirement that an off-site manager needed to be within a certain proximity to the property. Is there anything in the code that mandates that now? I couldn't find anything, but
To my understanding, we do require a local property manager, but we don't define what local is. But I do believe that could be answered by the applicant.
okay. Yeah, I was just curious, just before I ask a question, what our policy was. Okay. With that, I'll let the applicant come up, and sort of unusual here, you can pick your choice of any of these. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Okay. And you need to drag it, like, you can just pick up the whole thing and get it close within about 3 inches,
Okay,
a
you
little
hear me?
bit closer, I think.
okay, all
Perfect.
right,
When it almost echoes and you're close enough.
okay.
Okay. So you have the floor. You to state what you want, and we can ask you questions. Anything you want to add? Oh, and you should start by stating your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Lisa Jens. My address is 219 Crystal Hills Boulevard, up in Crystal Hills. Our intention for a short-term rental is, just like Chelsea said, that when we travel for the 2 months of a year that we're gone, we'd like someone to be in our house during that time period. So our intention is to rent the home January and February of each year for the whole home, and then possibly renting just the rooms out downstairs on like a weekly basis, maybe people traveling in town, because our house is kind of unique and has an extra driveway, and it has its own entrance downstairs, and it's not an area that we use very often. So we were trying to make use of it.
Anything else you'd like to add before we? Any questions for the applicant? Okay, okay. Okay, Steve? Oh, yeah. You need to unmute. Oh, there you go.
I wonder if you have spoken to your neighbors about this.
I have, yep. Before we did the application, we spoke to our neighbors.
Okay, my question would be just about the time when you're out of the area, the management of it. Are you in that period? You said you're going to do like the short term for 2 months. And
Mhm. So during that time period, our daughter will manage the property for us the first time. If we find that it's too much for her or more than we would want to ask of her, then we'll hire a property manager. We're real estate agents and we have a property manager within our company. So we would just have them do with that.
okay. Okay.
Is your daughter local?
Yes, well, she's in Castle Rock.
Okay.
She's where?
Castle Rock?
Oh, okay. That's sort of local. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks. So if we need anything more from you, we'll bring you back up.
Okay.
So, okay, now the public hearing is open. If anybody in the public would like to comment on this item, now would be the time. Okay. I see no takers, no one online, so I guess we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. And open to a motion.
Sorry, Alan, I just had a clarifying question. Am I correct in when I read the packet, there was no comments received from the public? Is that everybody's understanding?
Correct.
Okay. I can make a motion, so I will move to approve STR 2601 at 219 Crystal Hills Boulevard based upon the findings that the request meets the review criteria for granting a short-term rental permit as set forth in City Code Section 18.06.4.5 with no conditions.
I'll second.
Okay. If there's no more discussion, then we can vote. All those in favor? Okay. So it's done. And you just have your obligation when you post it to have all the info, and then I know staff will help you. Okay, we'll move on. The next item is minor development plan 2601 at 607 Ruxton Avenue.
Thank you. And just give me a moment to get shuffled over here. Never quite shares the same way twice. Okay, minor development plan 2601 is for a mixed use addition at 607 Ruxton Avenue. The proposal is for an addition to an existing legal non-conforming residential structure. The addition would include a garage, workspace, and a living space. This proposal will not add an additional dwelling unit, but will just add space to the existing dwelling unit. It is zoned commercial, and the really unique part of this site is that it contains a large concrete underground structure known as the settler that is the owner intends to repurpose as the foundation for the addition. So just to show you a little bit about the site, at the very end of Ruxton, the site is still zoned commercial. The water settler was originally part of the City of Colorado Springs water system. It was used to allow sediment to settle out of the water. It was constructed approximately in 1920, along with the original portion of the residence. So the residence exists in the green area outlined here. That's the existing residence. It has been added on to a number of times over the years. The existing settler is outlined in blue to the southwest, and the proposed addition is outlined in red, and it will connect the settler to the existing residence. This is a photo provided by the applicant showing what the settler looks like on the ground, essentially. So while the majority of the structure is underground, it does surface and create this large flat. I'm sure many people confused it for a patio over the years. But it's no longer in use. And the applications have been submitted and it has been reviewed by their geologic and engineering consultants for stability. Here are a couple photos of the existing residence. And again, since it's zoned commercial, a single household detached residence is not a permitted use by right. So this is legal non-conforming, and allowing a mixed use addition to the residence would actually bring that structure or that use into conformance with the zone district. As you can see from some of these photos, this is built in harmony with some rock formations on the site. The proposed addition will set on top of actually this photo in the bottom right and will connect to the settler, which is right behind it. There will be minimal land disturbance between the two areas, for which a grading permit will be required and reviewed. The mixed use workshop area is primarily functioning as a garage, again, for the single residence that will be on site and is on site currently. The addition itself is about 1,090 square feet. It complies with dimensional standards for the commercial zone district. And just due to grade changes and the existing elevation of the top of the settler, which kind of goes up just over halfway above the height of the residence, the single floor addition will sit kind of just offset above the existing residence, even though due to topography, it will comply with the, actually not just due to topography, it's well below the height limits for the zone district. As you can see, there is they propose a shed roof, which will allow snow to slough off of the roof away from the proposed garage door and drive area. The proposed exterior siding, though not within CPC purview, is proposed to be a similar board and batten to the existing residence. The applicants have requested, actually, excuse me, let's go through this first. The approval criteria for a minor development plan include the following 6 items. 1, general conformance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and other plans and policies adopted by City Council. I did list a number of policies and goals from Plan Manitou that staff finds to be congruent with this application. I'd be happy to go into those if anyone has any specific questions, but they are listed in the staff report. Number 2, the details of the use, site design, building location, orientation, and exterior building materials are compatible and harmonious with the surrounding neighborhood. While this may be the first mixed-use development in the neighborhood, the proposed workshop and existing residential use are consistent with adjacent uses. This being near the COG as well as the hydro plant, and then other residential uses in the area as well that are not just single-family detached residences. Some of them have accessory dwelling units or even could be defined as duplexes under current code. Item number 3, the project meets dimensional standards applicable to the zone district, such as but not limited to setbacks, building height, building area, or any other applicable requirement. Staff finds that this project complies with all of these requirements. And again, has excuse me, sorry. Number 4, the project grading, drainage, flood protection, stormwater quality, and stormwater mitigation complies with the applicable sections of the LUDC. This project complies with all the requirements and has been reviewed by the city's contracted engineer as well as the Colorado Geologic Survey. The owner's engineering team is also responsible for reviewing the structural integrity of the settler. Number 5, the project complies with all development standards of this section. The applicants have requested alternative compliance to the landscaping standards. They indicate that the Land Use and Development Code authorizes the Planning Commission in this instance to deviate from the landscaping standards where strict compliance with the standards is impossible or impractical. The applicant states that installation of new landscaping along steep slopes would be impractical and would require native vegetation to be cleared in excess of the limits of disturbance. There is a alternative compliance narrative exhibit that was submitted with the application, which has complete details. They have indicated that there are additional landscaping efforts on the site that they feel would more than make up for any absence of landscaping to be installed in compliance with the commercial zone district. In addition, the applicant indicated that, well, actually, excuse me, staff is of the opinion that commercial level landscaping would feel more inappropriate in this neighborhood, given the existing development standards in the area. There aren't those similar setbacks, landscape setbacks, sidewalks, parking lot lights, things like that, that would be required of any other commercial development. Since this property is already developed to a point and they're building on top of an existing impervious structure, staff feels that limiting the limits of disturbance to just that which is required by the development would be more appropriate than requiring landscaping. And then number 6, the project preserves, protects, integrates, or mitigates impact to any identified sensitive or hazardous natural features associated with the site. The proposed project minimizes the potential impacts to the geologic and topographic features of the site by repurposing a substructure that has already been integrated into the site and has been since the 1920s. Grading is kept to a minimum, again, if alternative compliance for landscaping is approved. And only a portion of the site that has less steep topography is proposed to be graded. Should the Planning Commission find it appropriate to approve the minor development plan, staff does not recommend any conditions. And here's some proposed motion language, and this concludes my presentation.
Any questions for staff? Megan?
Can you explain any intersection here or regulation required by the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yes, thank you for that question, Commissioner Day. The property was opted out of the Historic Preservation District when it was originally formed and has not sold and therefore has not been opted back into the Historic District. Therefore, the Historic District does not have purview over this development.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, for now, then would the applicant want to come up and Okay, could you start by stating your name and address for the record?
Michael Solik, 607 Ruxton Avenue.
Electra Johnson, 327 Oak Place.
Okay, you have the floor.
Yeah, we are asking for a minor subdivision approval for this. We originally tried to do a waiver of replat, but did not have a lot of record because the properties around it are owned by the COG in the city. The property itself has been in Michael's family. He grew up there, and it's the property right after the COG, directly on the same side as the COG. The disturbance for the minor subdivision is incredibly minor. There's a very small amount of soil there and a
Okay.
very small amount that's coming off of it. So
You're saying minor subdivision. Do you mean minor development?
minor development,
Okay,
sorry,
great.
minor development. Sorry, I got the language wrong. Yeah, so there's a very minimal amount of shift or change, but what this does is it just makes this quite a bit more livable for Michael and his family going into the future. And the workshop is planned more as a workshop than a garage too, so it sort of complies with the mixed use portion of the code that is workshop. Is there anything? Also, that area of Ruxton, there's just not any space to put a sidewalk or anything into it. It just drops off really substantially, and to remove vegetation or anything like that would take a lot to reseed and replant it with anything that would serve the purpose of the plantings that are already there. And Michael's mother has done a phenomenal job with has a professional plan that is laid out with all the plantings on site. So I don't know if you want to say anything else.
I don't.
Okay.
Question.
Are there any questions?
Questions for the applicant? Okay, I don't see any. Oh,
I think we have for.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's no questions from commission. We'll open the hearing up to the public, so you can sit down again, and if we have more questions, we'll ask you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It looks like there is a public comment from someone identified as Colleen.
Okay, can they, it'd be great if you could turn on your camera, but in any case, you have the floor.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't know how to do that.
Okay, well,
But I'm borrowing my wife's computer.
okay, well, you can just start by stating your name and address for the record, please.
616 Ruxton Avenue in Rick Johnson. And I was curious as how this is going to impact my, I would like to talk to Mr. Solik, like how it's going to impact my my view from my land. So I'm kind of right next to him.
You're saying you want the applicant to talk about your view?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I think, just for the record, they are in compliance with the height, but if it'll help, let them.
Oh, thank you very much.
Do you want me to address it? Okay, I have taken numerous pictures from every location around the site other than the creek, which is dropped. The topography is such that the grade where the actual addition is, the top of the roof barely even gets to the road. I mean, you can hardly see it from the road where the addition's going to be. because of the topography. It's right above the cog. There's a significant 30% grade drop down to where the house sits and where the settler is. And then it would be below the road. So any of the houses that are above that, it won't obstruct any views at all whatsoever. It won't obstruct any views anywhere. And in fact, you won't see it from the cog really as you're going up because it's shielded from the barns. And there's not really any house that it's going to impact any view
Yeah.
to speak of. And the difference of what you'll see is the roof versus the settler. And it's just taking that plane up a little bit because that impervious area is already there. It's just lifted and it's the same color. It's the same, like it's not substantial as far as an impact on surrounding properties.
I very much
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay,
welcome.
thank
Thank
you. Okay, thanks. Okay, anybody else in the audience want to talk about this? I see no takers, so I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. So. um, this. Okay, I make a motion. I'll move that we approve the minor development plan at 607 Ruxton Avenue based upon the findings that the request meeting the review criteria for granting a minor development plan as set forth in City Code Section 17450B5.
I will second that.
Oh, I started reading. The request meets the review criteria for granting a minor development plan as set forth in City Code Section 17445B5. And with no conditions. Is that
I
correct?
apologize. The code section is actually 18.06.4.12, and I apologize for the typo in the staff report.
Okay. Okay, 18, this as set forth in 18.
0.06.4.12.
0.06.412. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, then all those in favor? Okay, so that's approved. We'll move on to other business. Now we have a joint work session with Housing Advisory Board and Urban Renewal Authority.
Chair, would it make sense to have a brief recess while folks get situated around the table here?
Okay, let's do a 5-minute,
Thank
5
you.
minutes. Everybody can come sit up here. Okay, it looks like 50 seconds was better than 5 minutes, so we'll get back and going. Two.
Okay, if we're ready, I'll begin.
Okay.
For the record, Fred Rolandhagen, Planning Director. And I'll kick us off. This is a work session with City Planning Commission, the Urban Renewal Authority, and the Housing Advisory Board. So thank you, everybody, for attending this meeting. I went ahead and put together a quick presentation that I'll put up here. It's something that the Planning Commission has already seen in previous months talking about densities. That'll kind of set the stage, and then we can go from there if that works for everybody. So let me share. Okay, here we go. So this is, we're talking about some revisions, CPC work session with the HAB and URA. Okay, we'll do that. So with this, these code revisions work session, what I wanted to do is set the stage and just identify those residential densities that the land use and development code currently contain in each of the zoning districts. This is information that was in the memo that's in the packet. And we can go on from there, but just as a recap, we have maximum residential densities in all of our zoning districts. The commercial zoning districts are what are up on the screen right now. So they range, actually, these are all of the zoning districts from downtown to low density residential. So the downtown zoning district is our most dense with 30 dwelling units per acre. The commercial zoning district, which is the zoning district that most of the URA property is zoned currently, is at 20 dwelling units per acre. Mixed use commercial is also 20 dwelling units per acre. Wanted to note the mixed use commercial zoning district was set up specifically for URA property. To date, we don't have any properties in the city that are zoned mixed use, so we haven't gone through that rezoning exercise yet for any of the properties or any land in the city. Then in our residential zoning districts, our general residential district is at 10 dwelling units per acre, low density at 5, and then we have a high density residential district at 15. So that gives you an idea of what our current zoning districts are. Just wanted to throw out, we did a little bit of research for Planning Commission a few months ago and pulled up what the Colorado Model Land Development Code has for recommended densities. And so just for what it's worth, the Colorado Model Land Development Code identifies low density residentials, 2 dwelling units per acre. They have a medium density residential at 10. Then they have a small lot residential at 20, and then they have what they call a flex residential, which is at 30. I did not list the commercial or industrial zoning districts because there are a lot of them in the model code. But what I did want to note was that let me move this up, that most commercial and industrial districts in the code do not list maximum densities at all. Rather, it implies that the allowance to build, that they can build as dense as desired within the parameters of any dimensional restrictions, if there's any setbacks or height restrictions or any development standards. And those commercial districts in the model code that do list maximum densities are around 30 units per acre. Also wanted to note, in our code, we do have a bonus for affordable housing in section 18.02.1, point 4 sub 3, where residential density may be increased by up to 25% above the permitted density If at least 25% or more of the residential units provided are rented or sold at a price that is considered affordable as determined by HUD to a household earning 100% of area median income or less as determined by HUD. All affordable units shall be documented by a legal covenant to be deed restricted for a minimum of 30 years. So that is also in the Land Use and Development Code. Also, a couple months ago, or a subsequent work session, we did a little bit of research to understand contextually what other communities of similar size and makeup of Manitou to see what their densities and dimensions are. And so we did a quick analysis of some of the other municipalities around the state that are of similar size, similar economic, similar market conditions. So we used places like Estes Park and Leadville and Buena Vista and Salida. I'll go through each of these real quickly, but let's see. With Estes Park, they have a downtown commercial zoning district with a density of about 19 dwelling units per acre on the first floor, but no minimum land area for units on upper floors. They have a maximum building height of 42 feet. They have an accommodation zoning district with about 8 dwelling units per acre and a maximum building height of 30 feet. Woodland Park looks like they did not have a specific restriction for density, but they had a maximum building height of 35 feet in their commercial zoning districts. And they had a multifamily urban residential district. Again, no specific density restriction, maximum building height of 30 feet. Looked at Salida and Buena Vista, maximum building height of about 35 feet, density in Salida's RMU, which is a mixed use zoning district, about 15 to 16 dwelling units per acre. That was in Salida. Buena Vista, they have commercial and high density residential districts with simply no particular density requirement, but they have a maximum lot coverage of 75% with a maximum building height of 30 to 35 feet. And then go on to Leadville, Durango, and Fountain. Leadville, it looks like they have a retail core and commercial and retail residential districts that have about 40 to 60 dwelling units per acre. This is on the high side of those communities, these communities that we looked at. But that's for commercial. For residential, 20 dwelling units per acre. Then Durango, they have a high density. They have in their high density and commercial zoning districts. They had a density of about 24 to 42 dwelling units per acre, depending on the zoning district. And then Fountain, they had a residential and mixed use. Their residential and mixed use zoning districts are right around 16 dwelling units per acre. So, let me back up. So that's the end. The takeaway from this, I know it's a little difficult to make sense of a lot of this. The takeaway is, number one, it's very difficult to compare apples with oranges. Each community is different. Each community appears to set their densities and their standards based on local needs. And so it's difficult to compare, but it does not appear that we are out of the ordinary. We're not, in a very low, we're not considered to be on the very low end or the very high end. So take that with a grain of salt and take that as you will. The other exhibit that I wanted to make sure I got on the record is the memo that we received from the URA. We received it a couple days ago. I passed it out to the Planning Commission via email. I also passed it out to the Housing Advisory Board via email. I have paper copies here if anybody would like to have it, to take a look at it. But I'll make sure that everybody has access to it since it's on the record. So that's just wanted to set the stage with that, and we can start with discussion.
Yeah, I thought it'd be good. We can let both, since we have HAB and URA, let them weigh in too, since we haven't heard from them directly before. And we sort of heard from the URA based on the memo. Anything you'd like to add? And HAB. Yeah.
I just want to apologize. We changed our URA meeting till Thursday and I didn't get it in on time, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
Hey there, Allison Gerbig, Chair of the Housing Advisory Board. We spoke about putting something together, but I feel like we're still learning and educating ourselves on, height and density. I did attend the URA board meeting. Alan, you were there, and I called in and learned some things. I think the housing advisory boards like LEAD and LINS will always be the least restrictive opportunities for development of affordable housing. So that section you shared, Fred, with the 25% or whatever related to the housing, I was curious how that played out or landed when like Peregrine originally had come in. Was it like, just to help me understand, like when they were asking for their variance, like did that like that thing that you showed about the 25% come into play? Does it really matter? Do you know what I'm getting at here?
So you're talking about the particular application that came before Planning Commission for the variance request on the LaFun site. So so when they made the request, they didn't request for an increased density. The increased density would allow, for example, that particular scenario, I think that is when you're looking at that particular zoning district on the LaFun site, zone commercial, so they've got about 2 acres, so they can have up to 44 dwelling units on that particular site. So if they requested the 25% above and have an affordable housing project, they could have up to 50, I think, or plus or minus 50 dwelling units, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be right around 55. They did request a variance to density to increase the density to about 35 acres or 35 dwelling units per acre, I believe. And I apologize. I was also, could you please repeat like the crux of the question?
So I'm just trying to help myself understand, and I'm sure Hab as well, like on that, like when was that 25%, that thing that Fred was just showing, when was that put into place? And when Peregrine was denied for their original variance, did that come into play at all, or was that not even
Sure.
applicable?
Yes, I get, so, they were not meeting the standards in this code section. This code section was in place. It was adopted as part of the 2023 LUDC. However, they were not offering units at 100% AMI as required by this code section. They were, we kind of call it big A, little a. So they were creating less than luxury units and offering less than luxury prices, but they weren't meeting federal standards for affordability.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting that came out at the URA meeting was the fact that when they did do their most recent request to get the funding for the affordable housing, they were told not to exceed 50 units just because of the funding and the profile. I don't know if either of you remember the exact wording the applicant used, but basically they could have, based on the code, they could have gone as high as 53, but they only went to 50 because that's what they were advised to do by the funders for the low, the
Right,
subsidized housing.
based on the type of tax credits that they were targeting.
Yeah, they did do a LIHTC application, the first LIHTC application with CHAFA, and they weren't aware of that section of code for the first one. And so we, Alan made us aware of that, but they'd already submitted it at that point. But they did increase the density in their second application to 50, I believe, 50 dwelling units for this most recent one. That's a LIHTC also. It's their second CHAFA application. And Ellen's correct in saying that the pro forma just didn't pencil out for adding more units. And also that's sort of where it went to. And also they were trying to hit the Prop 123 funding that requirements by the end of this year too. So that's what they were going for with that situation.
Housing Advisory Board member Amy Mock has her hand up.
Hi, I'm just curious if the AMI can be targeted to a specific vulnerable population in the code revision.
The question was if AMI restrictions could be targeted towards specific vulnerable populations.
Such as on top of poverty, so on top of the affordability, could it be directed towards seniors, for instance?
I do know because I've been researching for our board that you can deed restrict housing. I was looking specifically at workforce housing, and I was going to reach out to the city of Durango because they've put in a section of their code for deed restricting for city employees or teachers. I'm sure you can do that for seniors too, but that was a question in one of our URA calls today regarding legislation for our these guys. That was a question that I'm pursuing as far as deed restriction within that. It's not in the code though for deed restriction, if that makes any sense, right?
The deed restriction requirement is part of the density bonus section. And while deed restrictions can be implemented by the city as we're currently staffed, I do believe that we've run into other projects that have had similar restrictions in the past, and enforcement without a housing authority can be a bit tricky.
Okay. Anything else you want to add or thoughts on, Allison, you saw the URA recommended going up to 20 units per acre, which would essentially effectively, with a 25% bonus, that would be like, I guess to go up to 25 is.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Our recommendations too, I guess, can I speak to those?
Sure.
Okay. For the URA board, we voted and unanimously agreed to recommend what the original recommendations had been from the 2022 working group and outreach. And so we revisited all of those conversations and literally just recommended what was in the code prior before that the consultant had recommended at the original planning meetings and the working group had worked on for 2 years prior. That is what our board would like to recommend, which is 25 dwelling units per acre. It's in the memo, so yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
So Alan, what were you saying? You were saying that would be like currently it's
15.
15, okay, so with,
Right,
that would
no,
allow.
5, 10, it's 20 right now. Yeah.
20. And so we're asking that it goes back to what the original working group had recommended, which was 25 DUs an acre. And then the height being, we also wanted to recommend that it's rezoned to mixed use commercial. The rezoning initiated by the city and structured not to place financial or procedural burdens on the property owners, but it was part of the working group's recommendations to zone the whole area of the URA as mixed use commercial because there's that zoning category that's not used, that's intended entirely for the URA, but none of the properties are actually zoned that. They're just commercial. So that would be beneficial. And then the building height piece would follow the land and the building height on the south side, which is the Manitou Avenue side, like next to 24 between Manitou Avenue and 24. The maximum building height was what the original working group recommended, which was 39 feet. And then on the other side, which is the north side, which is between Manitou Avenue and the creek, because it steps down and the hillside steps down, that it follows the landscape and that it should follow the topography. And that building height would be 35 feet. And I believe that is the sum of our recommendations.
Okay, so with the 25 dwelling units per acre and this 25% bonus for affordable, that would get it up to about 31. So
That's a good, I
okay.
mean, increase. I trust you all more. Like I said, we're just educating, learning all of these things about height and density.
Yeah.
And I think like the question, I know, Alan, you had spoke about variances, and in that meeting you were saying that like a variance would be if someone had like a big boulder in their yard and they couldn't build. Is there, and I see that the URA recommended that variance provisions remain unchanged, and I was just curious if like the reason for that, and if there is opportunity to open that up if the person's building affordable, or if that really matters, because I don't know the answer.
I don't know that that's necessary. The only one that might be applicable is the 30% transparency would be the only one that might be applicable for the ground floor for a variance, but there's no reason any of the properties necessarily would need one unless it was based on something like topography. There are a few properties, if they were redeveloped, that may need them, like Park Row, I'm thinking specifically because it's such a weird short and then it drops off. But other than that, I don't know that we as a group, as a board, didn't want to touch the variances because variances, as far as we were concerned, they should fit within the density and the height. And it was relatively straightforward, especially if you change the zoning to mixed use commercial. Didn't seem like there was a need for that because the impetus for the URA is to spur development. And I think that within those constraints, we can still spur development. So we didn't necessarily think that. So I think I answered that, but then I'm also pivoting to where our board is, if that makes sense.
Could
Yeah.
I just clarify?
Oh, yeah, I'll just make one comment first. Yeah, the thinking was that we were trying to address density by changing density, that's sort of the guidance that I've gotten in other informal conversations, that if your densities aren't right, you need to increase them, that the variance process was more for the realities of the building envelope, the, slopes or historic trees or rocks or whatever. And so that's really a lot of the motivation that we're even having this discussion right now about density is, well, let's fix it if it's not enough. So Chelsea.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify for the record that the Planning Commission has previously evaluated variance criteria and I believe has recommended changes to the variance criteria. And so I believe that this conversation is addressing specifically that the HAB and the URA don't see the need to then alter the variance criteria in addition to specifically address density. Is that
That is correct.
okay? Thanks.
I mean, I think that I would think that's similar. I don't know, Amy and Crystal, if you heard anything different, if that makes sense from the HAB side.
I'm happy to speak. I will say that we don't really know as panelists who's speaking. We can't tell. We just see chairs. So, I personally feel as a member of the HAB that the MSURA's recommendations are not unruly. They're very reasonable. I think there was a lot of work done in prior years, and I like how it's addressing the needs of variance and density without addressing variance after variance. And I think it's very reasonable. And I appreciate everyone, like Allison said, educating us on the, you know, the 25% and the AMI and especially the deed restrictions, I think are particularly interesting to members of the HAB, just trying to address certain like senior housing or workforce housing, for instance. And then I do think changing the code to a mixed use commercial is again reasonable and timely.
Okay, so would anybody on the commission like to jump in here now too? We've heard from the URA and the HAB.
Well, actually, this is more of a question. What's the current height limitations on what we're talking about here?
I believe it's 30 feet and you can go higher than that, but it requires setbacks from the street plane at that point. 35 feet, excuse me. But then it requires additional step backs for additional height.
So it's 35 basically.
Yeah.
And what the recommendation here is the north side of the street, no change to what our current is, and the south side is 4 feet higher. Is that right? Okay.
Megan, do you have any thoughts?
Sure, I do. Thank you for the good discussion and for everybody participating and working so hard on this. I think that we are the city of Manitou Springs, and we have seen how the density caps are restricting development of housing. I want to point out that the schools are atrophying right now. They are losing students, and that is going to sort of potentially exponentially continue, right? As you lose students, you lose programs, you lose the attractiveness of the district, so you lose more students. There's a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is housing. There is no housing, be it affordable, subsidized, deed restricted, or just apartments. Had this Paragon development gone in as proposed with a variance, we might have had 40 new students with the unit, that number of units, or 20 to 40, who knows? But it would have been a real boost to the schools and the community. And so I think that we should consider above, not just the current pretty minimal density of 20 for commercial and mixed use. But we should be looking to more like a Leadville, 40 to 60, or removing the density for commercial and mixed use. as long as they meet dimensional standards. So I would advocate for much more flexibility so that we can develop that area and not be looking at vacant dirt lots.
Thanks. Anybody else? Thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add, kind of echoing what Commissioner Day just said. To me, and seeing the other municipalities that don't have any density restrictions, but to me, these numbers just kind of seem arbitrary. And I feel like at the end of the day, we're really concerned about the dimensional standards and, the building envelopes and all things like that. That I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like in my experience here, that's what we really care about. And so I think those will have a natural way of policing the growth, but doing so in a responsible way rather than getting caught up in just the idea of, is it 25? Is it 30? Is it 20? That sort of thing. So that's what I'll add. So.
Yeah, I don't know how to choose a number, but overall, this seems like a reasonable middle ground to me.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the recommendations. I could see, I think it's going to be a really good mix. And my sense is that other communities do have some density limits. And, just our experience with this latest request that the Aragon has for the URA property, even if we had higher density, they were advised not to go there. So, I think we're basically talking about a 25% increase right now. And Electra?
Yeah, I would say just for this project and the penciling of the buildings that they have in place right now, they were advised not to go there. They did, their CHAFA application was turned down in the first round because the densities weren't high enough. So CHAFA was looking at equal money going to a project here versus a project somewhere else where more units would be built. And they chose to send it to a place where more units would be built. This one, the reason that the Performa pencils is where it is out is because basically they'd have to start over, and their goal is to hit the Prop 123 commitment made by the city of Manitou Springs, and that requires that they break ground this year or that money goes away and they can't, and they're not going to get that money. So that's where the Performa, because the capital stack for affordable housing is super complicated with funding from like there's like numerous different pieces that go into that. So the density specifically on this one, because of the stack and the timeline, don't necessarily work to start over from scratch. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, Megan.
So if you remember though, for that project, they were working to develop the property before the land use code changed. And so they were originally proposing many more units. And then the density decreased to what they were planning, and so they asked for a variance, but it wasn't up to the full maximum that they had planned to be economic, and to sort of pencil out a most
Yeah, I just
optimal.
I have to correct you there. We actually increased the density from the time they acquired the property till the time they made a proposal. Because
Oh, I
had,
thought they were planning on more units, and then sorry,
yeah, no, we actually increased the density in the URA, well, in all the commercial zones in the LUDC.
I still think it's too low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about my misunderstanding.
No. What happened was it was, it was, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to recall the exact number, but I believe, I'm looking at my thing here that has a,
Do you, Chelsea, don't you remember, I mean, or do you all recall, was it, felt like their original ask was they wanted 50, they needed to do the 50 units because that's what was sort of that threshold that Chaffa was needing, like Electra was saying.
So I don't recall what the previous code said. I would encourage us to kind of work with what we have currently rather than what we had before. And look at I think a couple of the commissioners here are advocating, Commissioner Day and Commissioner Wilson, sounds like they're advocating more for a form-based code where the focus is on the dimensional standards and how that could interact with maybe the mixed use zone district rather than all zone districts. I would encourage us to kind of not regulate for one project.
Right. So my apologies,
that's fair.
just trying to give examples and the need for flexibility to allow for redevelopment and housing of all types.
No, I agree that we shouldn't focus on one. I just want to emphasize, I mentioned this at the URA meeting, that like Peregrine has been really supportive for Manitou and wanting to develop affordable housing, whether it's a capital A or a small A, but either it would be quite a benefit. And it worries me because they can just build some townhomes, right? And make some cash. And we're just, Manitou, where Megan was saying, pushing people out, young families, as well as seniors, I'm sure that even want to age in place and they're getting priced out of their units. So I would like to hear from Commissioner Wilson a little more. I don't quite understand that like form-based thing and if it's similar to like what Megan, Commissioner, I'm sorry, can't remember your last name. Day, on her, what you guys are proposing or stating.
Yeah, and yeah, not my idea per se, but just kind of my thoughts on it. And, for the record, I do like the URA suggestions here. I'm not disagreeing with them. I'm just stating that to me, density can kind of get arbitrary if it looks like the real concern is the dimensional standards, right? And so putting those constraints on, which we already have in the code or adapting or adopting some of the recommendations here with like 39 feet, 35 feet on the other side, that will naturally enforce the standards we already have. And I think that we all agree with. And we don't have to go down and debate on whether or not we want to have 25 dwelling units per acre, or 20 or 30, whatever. And it avoids that. And we just use the dimensional standards that we have, if that makes sense. So.
okay. Any others? Roy, do you have any thoughts?
I was just confused though. Doesn't there have to be a number though?
No. If
we can have no number.
We could. I would be shocked if that's where the community would want to go if they put their feedback in. I mean, we had a lot of public engagement, and I think moving the ball down the field is really the best approach. And going from 20 to 25 or 30 would be huge and very impactful. And I would suggest we try to dial in there. And I think I'm pretty comfortable with the acceptance of the 25 plus the bonus. That's fairly close to what that project was. And I think that could really create some opportunities. And I think the biggest, the thing we have to think about is those dimensional standards, the thing that I stay awake thinking about is the lot coverage. I don't want to, increase lot coverage. I think, with fires and everything, we'd be crazy in our community to do that. Maybe not as scary along the avenue, but other areas, if there's mixed use or commercial, I think we have to be really careful. And but I really think that 25 or 30 is really where we can go.
Amy Mock has her hand up again.
Oh, Amy, go.
Hi, I'm just curious if we could, as a collective group, come to an agreement on how much time that we would allow to see if these changes adapt to the market. Because one thing I'm noticing is that if the MSURA was doing along with other joint work sessions, was doing work in 2022, and now it's 2026, and the market has already responding to existing regulations by not building at all. How long will we stay in this regulation before we're able to move with no building?
Our code is a living document, and we could change it tomorrow, next month, and we could change it 6 months from now.
Right. I'm trying to take a
There's
temperature here of
Yeah.
the commission board members while we're all here. What is a reasonable amount of time to wait for the market to dictate?
Oh. There's just so many variables, the economy, interest rates, state mandates, which, by the way, are probably going to obliterate a lot of what we're talking about. And so it's, I don't know.
Commissioner Day has her hand up.
Megan.
Sorry. I think to that point as well, I can't answer that question. Zoning is a living, breathing creature, but is, I would say, rarely updated. So this is kind of a rare opportunity in the scheme of things and how often zoning codes are updated. But also, my understanding is nobody has been able to take advantage of the 25% bonus. So that's also a signal that that is not really a viable, feasible opportunity. So to the extent we should think of it as part of the density allowance, that it, given that, unless somebody can correct me, I don't think it's anybody's doing that, despite trying. So we should be thinking of the density for the density rather than really considering the bonus as something that we're going to see much of.
I would respond to that. The density or the bonus, and the reason that nobody's taking advantage of that is the cost of construction has skyrocketed. And it's like $350 a square foot, even for affordable housing with like low end finishes because of supply chains and tariffs and a whole bunch of other things that are limiting factors. So it's not a whole lot different to take off all the finishes to finish a building. You still have to finish the building, with tap fees and everything. That's where the shift is, and the reason that hasn't, the reason the density bonus didn't work is because their original project was, I think it was 72 units was shot down, and then they went for another one, and we didn't know about the density bonus the second time around. And so here we are on the third time, and building that capital stack so that we can meet affordable housing standards and HUD standards and everything is going to take a Herculean effort whether it's a for rent or for rent, or it's for sale. And that's not just on that site, that's on any site. And I mean, I think the real issue is that there is supremely limited amount of land in Manitou to actually develop or redevelop because of the existing topography and whatnot. And building here, because of the topography, is extraordinarily expensive. So it limits the affordability and the ability to do multiple units and all the other pieces.
Yeah, I guess I like the idea of having the incentive that you get with the density bonus. You know, I think it's a good thing to have some, if we can pull it off, and you know, that time will tell. And I think that we have to start somewhere, or continue the march. And you know, my sense is we take these incremental steps, and we'll get there. And I'd like the recommendation from the URA as a starting point. I could even, you know, there seems to be a sentiment to go more. Do we want to recommend? And remember, this is a recommendation we'll be making to council. Do we want to recommend 30 units per acre and see where that goes? I mean, I think it'd be possible to get that agreement. I don't think we would go for the unlimited or the form-based right now. I just don't see it happening. But Allison.
I mean, can you, again, I'm not trying to cause issue. I'm just, since we're here at the table, could the form-based code be related to people that want to, or developers that want to build affordable? Or is that something that's, you can't have changes like that in the code?
I think one way we could implement that is to change the wording of the bonus, or the incentive would be to I don't know if you'd want to say unlimited density, but essentially, like, you know, there's no maximum density cap if the units are at AMI, 100% AMI, or however HUD defines it. And just one other point I did want to clarify for the commission, because that density bonus is difficult to find in code, that has been identified as part of the potential new section on administrative adjustments to consolidate that into a more easily found section of code.
I would address too with the density, unlimited density under a form is not unlimited density, because there's still parking requirements. There's still, the height requirements are a limitation within themselves. You have to have at least 8-foot ceilings. I mean, you're limited by the form. So even when you say unlimited, it's not necessarily unlimited. It's limited by the form. So
I just, you know, so we have someone comes up with a project that proposes 95 700 square foot apartments. Would we want that? And that's where, you know, I think it could get out of control. And
But as you said, Electra, like that, you can't, like, there's going to be parameters. I think Commissioner Wilson and maybe Dave said similar, you guys can correct that. Yeah, it doesn't mean there still are parameters, even though it's a more open, right? Like you said, with the ceilings and the parking and the this, it's not like you can just build a bunch of apartments on that plot.
Well, you could, I mean, if you did do, just being devil's advocate, if you did do form, you could do it like a SRO, like if that was a listed like allowable type within there, within that zone district. And Chelsea, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if like that would be the only possibility for an apartment of that size, I think, like a single room occupant, a short, like the SROs where it's like a very small unit that's affordable. That's usually like a single individual person unit for either some buddy who's, precariously housed or a senior citizen or something like that.
Right. I think the Barker House would be similar in model.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's about as close as it would be is something like that. Is like a rooming house. Like that's, I guess, what the historic precedent in Manitou would be something like that. Which is a
Yeah.
precedent in mining towns and small, Colorado towns.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you've all spoken about, market conditions, and I think that would also dictate what is developed.
Peace. Yeah, I guess at this point, we're sort of just going around and around, and maybe we can just poll the commission, since the commission is the one that's going to make the recommendation, and give some direction to staff to come up with something. And next month we'll have a public hearing and we can vote on it and push it on to council, and they can have a couple of hearings. So, I'll start. I'm comfortable with the URA recommendation, and I'd be comfortable with even increasing the density beyond the 25 to 30 plus the bonus. And then I like the height recommendation of the URA. So let's just go around and just.
I'm comfortable with that as well. The 25 or 30, I'd be comfortable with.
Okay.
I'm also comfortable with that. And, in the future, if we want to see this as a stepping stone, I'm open to further discussion. So.
Okay, Frank.
Yeah, I'd be open to that too, but I also say I would include the commercial district in that discussion as well, and not limit it to the mixed use commercial.
Okay, good thought. No, Megan.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan. I would suggest commercial and mixed use both moving to 30 to be aligned with creating, an extension of our vibrant downtown along the 24 corridor. I think that's an exciting opportunity. So both 30 as well, 30 dwelling units per acre, as well as the height increases, I think will make it much more flexible and developable area.
Thanks, Steve.
I agree with the 30. I agree with Megan. Basically, I think they should both go up to 30. And I'm totally in favor of the affordable bonus. It adds flexibility, even if no one's using it at this time. It's an attempt, it's an offer. So maybe someone could take advantage of it in the future.
Great. I like the way you said that. Okay, so I think you've got our feedback, and I think this has been a very useful meeting, and we'll move forward.
Thank you so much for the discussion and the
Sure.
consideration.
Right.
Yes.
And thanks for all showing up on a Wednesday night.
Yes, no, I appreciate it. And thank you for, like I said, we're learning. We're all, a couple of us are social workers and, like different, we do have an architect, but yeah, we're all like learning. So I appreciate the time that you guys gave.
Yeah, it's nice when some of our teachers can live in the community. Okay, I guess we'll move on. The next is, I think we just have updates. Let's see. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Amy and Crystal, for joining. We'll catch up next week. Bye.
Okay.
Appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I have too many council updates. There's one thing that I did take to city council over the last month was an amendment to, trying to remember, I think it was Title 12, which the Planning Commission doesn't deal with directly a whole lot, but there are encroachments that the city is allowed to approve, encroachments into right-of-way, encroachments onto private property. And right now we have minor encroachments and major encroachments for things for a number of different things that the city can approve. A lot of these encroachments that the city approves are related to construction work, work in the right of way, utility work, and everything like that. What we realized over the last year was that we've got, in being a historic community, we have perhaps a number of what we call existing inadvertent encroachments. Encroachments that maybe we don't realize that are in the right of way or on city property. They are private walls, they're retaining walls or corners or sides of homes, things like that. And so city council changed the code and added a section where we can where the city council can approve what it calls existing inadvertent encroachments to allow for these old structures, old private structures, or things to remain indefinitely through either an encroachment agreement or an easement. There was a lot of discussion over who should approve these types of encroachments, and city council ended up approving it with the city council being the final decision maker. So that's a good thing for the city of Manitou. That way we have a mechanism to approve these these encroachments that have been around in many cases over 100 years. So that's all.
Great. Anything else from anybody? No? Are you ever going to come back, Megan?
Sorry. I learned last week when I had a flight home for good, that my fellowship is unexpectedly extended. So I am coming home Saturday this week, but I need to come back to DC. So I will be having to join remotely for a little while longer, and then I will be back home. Sorry about that.
Well, that's okay. It's just, it's, I have sympathy for being there. It's probably exciting, but scary too.
I'm learning lots. But I'm also grateful to be still employed since we had major layoffs at my laboratory on Monday of this week. So
Oh.
I will work where they want me to be. So
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, let's adjourn. Good meeting.